Well, it's 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. You walk into the office, you pour your cup of coffee, and then you hear it.
Oh no, the dreaded question from your manager.
Exactly. So, how was your weekend? And suddenly, your mind just goes completely blank, right?
Totally blank. Yeah.
Do you tell your boss about that, like, wild, crazy party you went to on Saturday night? Or do you admit that you sat in your pajamas for 48 hours and did absolutely nothing?
Right. Or do you just mumble, it was good, and
Yeah.
sort of stare at the floor?
Yeah, I've definitely done that. Welcome to English Refined, by the way. We are so glad you're joining us today.
Yes, welcome. It's great to have you here. Our mission today, as always, is to help you practice your daily life speaking.
Exactly. We want you to feel confident, natural, and just completely comfortable when you speak English out in the real world.
And today, we are taking a deep dive into exactly how to answer that Monday morning question.
Because it's, one of the most common conversations you'll ever have in English, whether you're at school, at work, or just with friends.
It really is. And we're not just going to give you a boring list of words to memorize. We have sources covering the science of storytelling, strict rules of workplace etiquette, and even the psychological secrets to planning a weekend that actually helps you rest.
So by the end of this deep dive, you will know exactly what to say on Monday morning, no matter what you did.
Right. You'll never feel stuck again.
Huh.
But let's start right at the beginning.
The basics.
Yeah, the basics. Before we can talk about the psychology of small talk or cool storytelling secrets, we really have to look at the mechanics of the language itself.
Right. We have to talk about grammar.
I know, I know. When people hear the word grammar, they usually just want to run away.
They really do. It sounds like a boring school textbook.
But grammar is just like the operating system of the language.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. If your operating system has a bug, the listener's brain gets an error message. They stop listening to your story because they're busy trying to fix the error in their head.
That makes so much sense. And the biggest error message happens with time. English is a language that is just absolutely obsessed with time.
It really is. You can't just describe an action. You have to tell the listener exactly when that action happened.
Right. And when we talk about the weekend, we're talking about a closed box of time. The weekend is over.
Exactly. It's completely finished. So we have to use the past simple tense.
This sounds simple, I know, but it is actually a really common trap for English learners. I hear it all the time. Someone will say, on Saturday, I go to the park.
Right. But the brain of a native English speaker hears the word go, and it expects the action to be happening right now, or maybe happening every single day.
Yeah, like a habit.
Exactly. When you say I go to the park, it means I have a habit of going to the park in general.
But the listener asked about one specific finished weekend.
Right. So you have to change the verb. You have to signal that the action is in the past. Instead of I go to the park, you must say I went to the park.
Right, so go becomes went. See becomes saw. Instead of saying, I see my friend, you say, I saw my friend.
Yeah. You just have to learn those irregular verbs. There's no magic trick for them, unfortunately.
That is practice. But I feel like the real confusion happens when we start asking questions.
Oh, absolutely. Let's say you want to ask your coworker about their weekend. You might be tempted to say, what you do last weekend.
Yeah, I hear that constantly. What you do. It's very direct, but in English, it just sounds broken.
It does. Because English requires a helper verb to build a question in the past tense.
A helper verb.
Yeah, think of a helper verb like a little flag.
Yeah.
When you wave this flag, you're telling the listener, attention, I am about to ask you a question, and the question is about the past.
And that little flag is the word did.
Exactly. The word did.
It's so interesting because it doesn't really have a meaning of its own in the sentence. It just acts as a time machine, taking the whole sentence back in time.
Yes. It's purely grammatical. You must always insert it before the person you're asking. What did you do last weekend?
Right. And if you're asking about a location, you can't just say, where you go.
No, you have to wave the flag. You have to say, where did you go?
Where did you go? Okay, wait, I have a question about going to places, actually. This is something that drives learners crazy.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to ask.
I often hear people say, I went home, but then in the very next breath, they'll say, I went to the beach. Why is the little word to used for the beach, but completely missing when we talk about home?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most common questions I get. Let's break down why this happens. Usually, when you move your body toward a destination, you need a preposition of direction.
Right, you need to.
Exactly. You went to the store, you went to the movies. The word to acts like an arrow pointing at your destination.
Okay, so to is the arrow. Why does home not get an arrow?
Because in English, the word home is very special. In this specific sentence structure, home isn't acting like a physical building.
What is it acting like then?
It's acting like an adverb of direction.
An adverb of direction, like the words north or south.
Exactly. If you travel south, you don't say, I went to south. You just say, I went south.
Right.
The direction is built right into the word. And home works the exact same way. It's a direction. So you never say, I went to home. You simply say, I went home.
Wow, that makes so much sense. Home is a direction. You don't need the arrow because the word is already pointing there.
Exactly.
Okay, let's look at another major trap. Let's talk about vocabulary words that sound almost exactly the same, but have drastically different emotional meanings.
Oh, the biggest trap here is the difference between fun and funny.
Yes, they look like siblings.
They do. They come from the same root.
Yeah.
But if you mix them up, you will create a very confusing conversation.
I see this happen at parties all the time. Someone will try to give a compliment about the food or the atmosphere, and they use the wrong word. Let's explain the difference clearly.
So, fun describes enjoyment. It means you had a good time. A roller coaster is fun. A weekend at the beach is fun.
Okay, so fun equals a good time. What about funny?
Funny is strictly about humor. It means something makes you laugh out loud.
Right, like a comedian is funny.
Exactly. So, if a learner tells their boss, my weekend at the beach was very funny, what does the boss actually hear?
The boss hears that the beach was telling jokes. The boss imagines the sand and the ocean performing a comedy routine.
Yeah, it sounds very strange. You're saying the beach made you laugh out loud.
Which is obviously not what you mean. You just mean you had a good time. So you must say, the beach was fun. But you could combine them, right?
Sure.
Like you could say, the party was fun and my friend told a very funny story.
Yes, that works perfectly.
Yeah.
The party was enjoyable and the story made you laugh. You just have to keep those two concepts separate in your head.
Right. Now, there's another pair of words that is even more dangerous to mix up. I've actually seen people embarrass themselves at work because of this mistake.
Oh, well, let's talk about bored versus boring.
Yes, please.
This is a crucial distinction. In English, adjectives that end in ed describe an internal feeling. It's an emotion happening inside your own body.
Okay, internal.
Right. So if you sit at home for 2 days with no televisions, no books, and no friends, you feel empty. That feeling is bored. You say, I was bored.
So ed is how I feel. But what about the ing ending?
The ing ending describes what you are projecting outward into the world. It is the cause of the feeling.
Oh, I see.
Like a 3-hour lecture on the history of dirt is boring. It projects sleepiness. And because the lecture is boring, it makes you feel bored.
So what happens if a learner goes into the office on Monday and says, my weekend was terrible, I stayed home and I was boring?
Oh, if you say, I was boring,
Yeah.
you are insulting yourself.
Oh, no.
You're telling your coworkers, I project a terrible personality.
Yeah.
I put people to sleep. I'm an uninteresting human being.
That is a disaster. You
Yeah.
are basically telling your boss that you have no personality.
Exactly. You must always remember, you feel bored. You do not want to be boring. Always say, I was bored.
Such a vital rule.
Yeah.
A is how I feel. A is what I project. Let's cover one more small grammar rule before we move on. This is something that speakers of many Asian and Slavic languages struggle with, just because these little words don't exist in their native languages. I'm talking about articles.
Oh, yeah. The tiny words a, and the.
Right.
In English, we have this grammatical concept called countability. We have an absolute need to clarify if we're talking about a general abstract concept or one specific physical thing.
So if I say, I read book, why does it sound wrong?
Because without the article a, the word book sounds like an abstract concept. It sounds like you're saying, I consume the general idea of paper.
That sounds so weird.
It does. When you add the article a, you bring the object into the physical world. You make it real. I read a book. Now, the listener can picture one specific physical object in your hands.
I read a book. I saw a movie. I drove a car. These tiny words really make the sentence feel grounded and complete.
They really do. So let's put all of this basic grammar together. Let's do a quick role play to show how a beginner can answer the Monday morning question perfectly.
Okay, I love role plays.
The goal here is not to use big fancy vocabulary. The goal is just to use perfect, clean grammar. I'll ask you about your weekend.
I am ready. I'll keep my answers simple, but grammatically perfect.
Oh, good morning. How was your weekend?
It was good. I went to the movies and saw a funny comedy. What did you do?
I just stayed home. I read a book and cooked dinner.
That sounds nice.
And seen.
Notice what happened there. I used the past tense went instead of go. You used the helper verb did to ask me a question.
Right.
And I used the article a when I said saw a funny comedy. It was a very short conversation, but because the grammar was clean, it felt completely natural.
Absolutely. A short, grammatically correct answer is always better than a long, messy answer. It builds a solid foundation.
Definitely.
But, of course, simple answers like it was good are only the first step. If you want to build relationships at work or connect with your friends, you have to be able to describe different types of weekends.
Right. This is where we transition from basic mechanics to vocabulary, because not every weekend is the same.
No, definitely not.
Sometimes you're exhausted and just want to sleep. Sometimes you have to run a million errands. Sometimes you go on a big adventure. How do we express these different flavors of time?
We can break the vocabulary down into 4 distinct categories: the relaxing weekend, the busy weekend, the adventurous weekend, and the disaster weekend.
Let's start with the one we all dream about, the relaxing weekend. This is when the goal is to do absolutely nothing. I was looking through our vocabulary sources, and there are some fantastic natural phrases for this.
Yeah, there are.
My favorite is slept in.
Slept in is wonderful. It means you intentionally stayed in bed past your normal waking hour.
Like, if your alarm usually goes off at 6 a.m., but on Saturday you stayed in bed until 10 a.m.
Exactly, you slept in.
It is different from oversleeping.
Very different.
Yep.
For sleeping is an accident. It means you missed your alarm and now you're late for work. That causes panic.
Oh yeah, totally different vibe.
Right. Sleeping in is a luxury. It's a choice to stay in bed and rest.
I love sleeping in. And once I finally get out of bed, another great phrase is chilled out. This is very casual. It just means you removed all stress from your body. You didn't do anything difficult.
Yeah, chilled out is great. You could also say, I had a laid-back weekend.
Laid back. I like that.
It's a great compound adjective. Imagine your body posture. When you're stressed, you sit forward, tense and tight. But when you're relaxed, you lean your back against the chair. You are literally laid back.
So a laid back weekend means a weekend with no tension.
Exactly.
I also noticed the word uneventful in our sources. This feels like a slightly more advanced, maybe formal word.
It is a great word for the office. If your boss asks about your weekend and you just stayed home and watched TV, you can say, it was pleasantly uneventful.
Pleasantly uneventful.
Yeah, because eventful means full of big events and drama. Uneventful means peaceful, quiet, and predictable.
That sounds so mature. Pleasantly uneventful. Okay, but what if we swing to the opposite extreme? What if you had a busy weekend? You know, the kind of weekend where you finish Sunday night and you feel like you need another weekend just to recover?
Oh, we've all been there. Busy weekends are very common, especially for adults with families or chores. To describe this, the word hectic is perfect.
Hectic.
Yeah, hectic doesn't just mean you had a lot to do. It implies a sense of chaotic energy. You were running from one place to another.
You can also say your weekend was packed. This is a great visual metaphor.
Oh, definitely. Think of packing a suitcase for a trip.
Yeah.
If you put too many shirts in the suitcase, it is packed. It's completely full.
Right, so if your schedule has no empty hours, your weekend is packed.
Exactly. Let's give an example.
Yeah.
Imagine you had to help your brother move into a new apartment on Saturday, and then you had to paint your kitchen on Sunday.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. You can say, my weekend was incredibly hectic. I helped my brother move heavy boxes all day Saturday, and Sunday was packed with house chores. I'm exhausted.
That paints a very clear picture. The listener immediately understands your energy level.
Right.
Now, let's look at the third category, the adventurous weekend. This is when you actually leave your normal routine and do something exciting.
For this, we use words associated with travel and nature. You might say you went on a road trip.
A road trip.
Yes. This means you got in a car and drove for several hours to a special destination just for fun.
You could say you went hiking. Hiking is different from just walking. You walk on a city sidewalk, but you hike in the mountains, on dirt trails, usually wearing special boots.
Right. So an adventurous answer might sound like, I had an amazing weekend. My friends and I took a road trip out to the mountains and went hiking. The weather was perfect.
That sounds idyllic. But as we all know, life does not always go according to plan.
No, it doesn't.
That brings us to our fourth category, the disaster weekend.
The disaster weekend. This is when you get food poisoning, or your car gets a flat tire in the rain, or pipe bursts in your kitchen. It's just a weekend of bad luck.
Is it socially acceptable to talk about a disaster weekend at work? I feel like people might get uncomfortable if you start complaining too much.
That is a very perceptive question. Yes, you can talk about a disaster, but there's a psychological trick you must use. You must end the story on what we call a positive note.
Why is that important?
Because small talk is about making people feel comfortable. If you end your story by saying, my car broke down, it cost $1,000, and my life is miserable, the listener feels trapped.
Right. They don't know what to say to that.
Exactly. They don't know how to fix your life. They feel an emotional burden.
Ah, so you have to release the tension for them.
Yes, you share the bad news, but then you rescue the listener by proving that you are okay now.
Give me an example.
For example,
Hmm.
honestly, my weekend was a bit of a disaster. I got a flat tire on the highway in the pouring rain, and I had to wait 3 hours for a tow truck.
See, if you stop there, it's really awkward. But if you add the positive note,
You say, but I finally got it fixed, and I'm just glad to be safe and dry today.
I am just glad to be safe and dry. That acts as an emotional release valve. The listener can say, wow, I'm glad you were safe too. The conversation stays friendly and no one feels burdened.
Precisely. Now, to make all of these descriptions, whether relaxing, busy, or disastrous, sound truly natural, we need to talk about the secret weapon of English vocabulary.
Ooh, what is it?
We need to talk about phrasal verbs.
Phrasal verbs. I am obsessed with phrasal verbs. For an English learner, mastering phrasal verbs is like discovering a secret code.
It really is.
But they can be very frustrating to learn because they often don't make logical sense.
No, they don't. A phrasal verb is a verb combined with a small preposition like up, down, in, or out. And you're right, the meaning of the combined phrase is often totally different from the original verb.
I like to think about it in terms of movement. English speakers love to give actions a physical direction. Let's look at the phrasal verbs from our sources about relaxing at home. The most popular one is wind down.
Yes, wind down. Think about an old-fashioned mechanical clock. To make the clock tick, you have to wind it up tightly with a key. It has a lot of tension.
Right.
At the end of a long, stressful work week, your body is like that clock. You are wound up tight. So to relax, you have to slowly wind down. You let the tension out.
That is a beautiful metaphor. I spent Friday night just winding down on the couch. Another one related to the home is tidy up. Why do we say tidy up instead of just clean?
Well, clean usually implies removing dirt. You clean a window with soap, you clean a dirty floor. But tidy up is about restoring order.
Oh, I see.
If there are books on the floor, clothes on the bed, and mail on the kitchen table, the house isn't necessarily dirty, but it is chaotic. When you put the books on the shelf and hang up the clothes, you are tidying up.
And what does the up part do?
The word up often suggests completion or improvement in English. You bring the room up to a better standard. I need to tidy up the living room before my guests arrive.
Speaking of guests, our sources give us the phrase, have someone over. This is so much more natural than saying I invited a person to my residence.
Oh, absolutely. I am having some friends over for dinner. It sounds warm and casual, and if you decide you don't want any guests and you don't want to go out, you use the phrase stay in.
I think I'm just going to stay in tonight. Okay, let's look at the social phrasal verbs, the ones we use when we actually leave the house. The classic one is meet up.
Meet up simply means gathering in one location with other people. Let's meet up at the coffee shop at noon. But there's a more advanced version of this. Catch up with.
I love catch up with. The physical metaphor here is so clear. Imagine your friend is running on a track and they are far ahead of you. You don't know what they've been doing. To run faster and reach their position is to catch up.
Exactly. In conversation, it means you haven't seen this person in a long time. Their life has moved forward without you. You need them to tell you all their new stories, their new job, their new relationships. You are catching up on their life.
I met up with my old college roommate to catch up with her. That is a very sophisticated English sentence.
It is. What if you see someone, but you didn't plan it? You didn't schedule a meeting. You're just walking down the street and suddenly there they are.
For that, we use bump into or run into. Now, you are not physically crashing your body into them. It's a metaphor for two paths colliding by accident. I was at the grocery store, and I bumped into my neighbor.
Right. It implies a pleasant surprise. Now, before we leave vocabulary, I want to highlight two very modern idioms from our sources.
Oh, yeah.
These are phrases that have become incredibly popular in the last 10 years because of technology. The first is binge-watched.
Oh, I binge watch stuff all the time. To binge means to consume a huge amount of something very quickly, usually food or alcohol, but now we apply it to television.
Right.
When a streaming service like Netflix releases a whole season of a show on one day, and you sit on your couch for 8 hours watching every single episode back to back without stopping, You binge-watched it.
It's almost a badge of honor for a lazy weekend. I stayed in and binge-watched the new sci-fi show.
Yeah. The other modern phrase is flick through.
To flick is a very fast, light movement of your finger. You can flick a light switch. In modern English, flicking through means rapidly consuming visual information without deep focus.
Like holding your phone and using your thumb to scroll quickly through Instagram or TikTok. You are not reading deeply, you're just flicking through. You can also flick through the channels on your television.
So a great natural sentence would be, I was so exhausted on Sunday, I just laid on the couch and flicked through Instagram for an hour.
These phrases give your English so much color. They show that you understand the culture, not just the dictionary definitions.
Absolutely.
But, having the right vocabulary is only half the battle. The other half is understanding context.
Context is everything. The way you speak to your best friend at a bar is completely different from the way you speak to your company's CEO in the elevator.
Right. And this brings us back to what one of our sources calls the dreaded office question.
We talked about this at the very beginning of the deep dive. The panic of Monday morning. Why do people hate this question so much? Our source from Reddit gave a fascinating look into the psychology behind this.
The Reddit source focused heavily on introverts. An introvert is someone who regains their mental energy by being alone or in very quiet, calm environments. A loud party drains their energy. A quiet weekend gardening restores their energy.
Right. So imagine an introvert goes into the office on Monday. They had a great weekend reading a fantasy novel on their couch, but they sit down at their desk and the coworker next to them says, "My weekend was insane. We flew to Vegas, went to a huge concert, and stayed up until 4 a.m. What did you do?"
Wow. Suddenly the introvert feels this wave of shame. They compare their quiet weekend to the coworker's loud weekend. They feel like their life is boring or that they are doing weekends wrong.
Exactly. They dread the question because they feel like they have nothing valuable to report.
But this is a complete misunderstanding of what the question actually is. When a coworker asks, "How was your weekend?" They are not actually asking for a documentary film about your life.
No, they are not. This is a crucial concept in English-speaking workplace culture.
Mm.
The question is a form of small talk. Small talk is not about exchanging data. It's a social ritual.
If it is a ritual, what is the purpose of it? If I don't care about my coworker's trip to Vegas and they don't care about my book, why do we bother speaking at all?
From a psychological perspective, it is about establishing safety and connection. Think about our ancient human ancestors. When two humans met, they had to prove to each other that they were friendly, not a threat.
Oh, wow.
Small talk is the modern version of that. By asking about your weekend, your coworker's saying, "I see you, I acknowledge you, and we are part of the same tribe. We are friendly."
So it's not about the information, it's about the social grooming. It's about proving we are safe with each other.
Exactly. Knowing this takes the pressure off the introvert. You do not need to invent an exciting story to be socially acceptable. You just need to participate in the ritual.
Okay, but how?
Well, you do need to frame your quiet weekend in a positive way.
Right. If you just shrug and say, "I did nothing," you break the social ritual. You sound depressed or defensive, which makes the coworker feel awkward. You have to reframe it.
Reframing means changing the perspective. Instead of describing the absence of activity like, "I did nothing," you describe the presence of rest. You say, "I had a wonderfully quiet weekend. I completely took it easy."
I completely took it easy. That sounds intentional. It sounds like you chose to relax rather than just failing to have plans.
And to keep the ritual going, you offer one small polite detail to give them something to respond to. "I took it easy. I spent some time working in my garden."
That is a gift to the listener. Now they can ask, "Oh, what are you growing?" The ritual is successful.
That's such a helpful way to think about it. But let's look at the flip side. What if the introvert's problem is that their weekend sounds too boring, but the extrovert's problem is that their weekend sounds too crazy?
This is where we must discuss professional etiquette. Etiquette means the unwritten rules of polite behavior. We looked at a fascinating source from Rochester University that outlined the ABCs of etiquette.
Let's break down the ABCs. What do they stand for?
A stands for attire, which is how you dress. B stands for behavior, how you physically act. And C stands for communication, which is what we are focusing on today.
Okay.
The way you communicate must change depending on the boundary of your environment.
A boundary is the invisible line between your personal life and your professional life. I think a lot of people struggle with this. They want to be authentic at work. They want to be their true selves.
Authenticity is good, but oversharing is dangerous. Let's use a drastic example. Let's say you went to a bachelor party on Saturday night. You drank 10 beers, you danced on a table, you lost your jacket, and you stumbled home at sunrise.
That is a very eventful weekend.
It is, and if you are meeting your best friend for coffee on Sunday, you share every single detail. You use slang, you laugh about how drunk you were. That builds a bond with your friend.
But on Monday morning, when the boss asks,
You absolutely cannot tell the boss about the 10 beers and the table dancing. Even if your boss is friendly, they are evaluating your judgment and your maturity. You must learn to edit your truth.
editing your truth. I like that. You're not lying. You're just zooming out and giving the professional summary.
Yes. The Rochester University rule is always default to being formal and polite. Default means your automatic setting. If you're not sure what to say, choose the boring, polite option.
So how do I edit the table dancing story for my boss?
You focus on the core event, stripped of the inappropriate behavior. You say, I attended a friend's celebration this weekend. It was a very nice evening.
I attended a friend's celebration. It is technically 100% true, but it sounds incredibly mature and composed. Let's demonstrate this with 2 role plays. This will really show the learners how the vocabulary and tone shift based on the audience.
Let's do it. Scenario A is the office environment. I will play your manager. We are standing by the printer on Monday morning. I will initiate the small talk.
Okay, I am the employee. I will edit my truth and use formal, polite English.
Good morning. I hope you had a nice weekend.
Yes, thank you. It was very restful. I managed to catch up on some reading. How was your weekend?
Very pleasant, thank you. Just spent some quiet time with the family. And scene.
Notice how clean that was. I answered the question, I gave one polite detail, catch up on some reading, and then I immediately deflected the attention back to the boss by asking, how was your weekend?
Deflecting the question back is a key part of the etiquette. It shows you are polite and interested in them. Now let's contrast that with scenario B. Same weekend, but now I am your close friend. We are meeting at a pub on a Friday night.
Okay, all the professional boundaries are gone. We can use casual slang.
Yay! Get up to much this weekend.
Oh man, it was crazy. A bunch of us went bar hopping downtown, and I am completely exhausted today. We didn't get home until 3 a.m.
No way! Where did you go? Tell me everything.
See, the energy is completely different. I used idioms like bar hopping, which means moving from one bar to another. I admitted that I was exhausted. I gave specific details about staying out late.
The contrast is clear. With a friend, you share the messiness of life. With a colleague, you share the polished summary. Knowing your audience is the absolute secret to mastering English communication.
Okay, we have covered the grammar, the vocabulary, and the social etiquette of short answers. But what happens when you actually want to talk?
Yeah, what if you went on an amazing trip or something hilarious happened and you want to tell a longer story?
Telling a story in a second language can feel very intimidating.
Yeah.
You worry that you're going to lose the listener's attention or that you won't have the right words. But storytelling is actually a science. And if you follow a few psychological rules, you can captivate anyone.
We looked at a source from the Science of People that explains exactly what happens in the human brain when we hear a story. It is fascinating. It's not just about words. It is a biological reaction.
It's entirely biological. When you just state a list of facts like, I went to the store, I bought apples, I came home, the listener's brain only activates the language processing centers. It's decoding data.
Right.
But when you tell a story, something magical called neural coupling occurs.
Neural coupling, that sounds like 2 computers syncing together.
That's exactly what it is. The listener's brainwaves begin to match the storyteller's brainwaves. If you describe feeling nervous in your story, the listener's brain lights up in the areas associated with nervousness. You are literally controlling their brain activity for a few moments.
Wow, and this triggers a chemical release, right? The source mentioned oxytocin.
Yes, oxytocin. This is a very powerful neurochemical. It's often called the trust hormone or the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical a mother releases when looking at her baby, or the humans release when they hug.
So when you tell a good story to a coworker or a friend, you are giving their brain a chemical hug. You are building actual biological trust with them. That is an incredible superpower.
It is. But to trigger that oxytocin, you cannot be boring.
Great.
You have to follow the rules of engagement. The first rule, and the place where most people fail, is this. You must start with action.
Start with action. Why do people fail at this?
Because human beings naturally want to explain the context first. We want to set the stage. A bad storyteller will say, well, on Friday it was raining, And my friend Sarah called me. Sarah's the friend who works at the bank. Anyway, we decided to go out for dinner because neither of us wanted to cook.
I am already falling asleep. That is so much boring background information.
Exactly. The brain's attention algorithm is looking for a threat or a surprise. If you give boring background, the listener's brain decides this is not important, and it tunes out. You must cut the background and jump right into the middle of the action.
Give me an example. How do we rewrite the boring story about Sarah and the dinner?
You skip the phone call. You start like this. There I was, sitting in a crowded Italian restaurant, when suddenly the waiter drops an entire tray of pasta onto my friend's lap.
Boom. I am instantly awake. My brain wants to know what happens next. How did Sarah react? Did the waiter apologize? Starting with action forces the listener to pay attention.
Once you have their attention, you must use the second rule, sensory details. Sensory refers to your 5 physical senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch.
We touched on this earlier. You said you shouldn't just say, the restaurant was nice. That doesn't trigger neural coupling.
Right. Nice is an abstract concept. The brain cannot visualize nice. But the brain has something called mirror neurons. If I describe a physical sensation, your mirror neurons fire as if you are feeling it yourself.
So instead of nice, what do I say?
You use sensory words.
Mm.
We walked inside, and the warm smell of roasting garlic hit me instantly. The room was dark, glowing with tiny yellow candles, and you could hear loud jazz music playing in the background.
Garlic. Glowing candles. Loud jazz. I can literally see and smell the room in my mind. You painted a picture.
That's the goal. But even with action and sensory details, a story needs a spine. It needs tension. Tension is the gap between what is happening and what might happen next.
How do you build tension in a simple weekend story? We aren't writing Hollywood action movies here.
Tension just requires a problem, a small obstacle. We were having this amazing dinner, laughing, the food was perfect, but then I reached into my pocket to pay the bill, and my wallet was completely gone.
Ah, missing wallet. Now there is a problem to solve. The listener is hooked until they find out if you found the wallet.
Action, sensory details, and tension. Those are the rules. But our sources also explicitly warn us about the 3 biggest storytelling mistakes. If you do these, you will destroy the oxytocin connection.
Let's break those down. The first mistake is called information overload.
Information overload happens when the speaker cannot filter out useless facts. They burden the listener with details that do not matter to the plot.
Like trying to remember the exact street name. We went to a cafe on 4th Street. Wait, was it 5th Street? Let me think. No, it's definitely 4th because it was next to the Blue Bank.
Yes. The listener is internally screaming, I don't care what street it was on, just tell the story. Every useless detail is a cognitive burden. It slows the story down. If a detail doesn't build tension or provide a sensory experience, leave it out.
Cut the fat. Okay, the second mistake is the monotone mistake.
Mono means one. Tone means sound. If you speak in one single flat pitch, like a robot reading a manual, you will put people to sleep.
Even if the story itself is crazy. And then the bear chased us through the woods. If there is no emotion in the voice, the brain doesn't register the danger.
You must modulate your voice. This is great practice for English learners. When the story gets exciting, speak a little faster and a little louder. When you get to the tense part, lower your voice. Speak softly and slow down. Use your hands to gesture. Transfer your physical energy to the listener.
And the final mistake to avoid is exaggeration.
Exaggeration is a poison to trust. It means blowing things out of proportion, making the fish you caught sound like a shark. If you constantly exaggerate to make your stories sound better, people will eventually realize you are lying.
And then the oxytocin stops flowing. They stop trusting you.
Exactly. Keep it true, but focus on the genuine emotional highlights. In casual conversation, a story should never be a 20-minute monologue. It should be a tight, punchy 2 or 3 minutes.
I found a brilliant analogy for this in our sources. We had an entire source dedicated to writing Instagram captions, and the rules for Instagram apply perfectly to telling a short weekend story.
Oh, how do they overlap?
Well, think about how you use social media. You don't post a 45-minute video of your drive to the grocery store. You don't post a picture of the dirty dishes in your sink. You post the single best, most visually interesting moment of your day. You post the highlight.
Ah, I see. You curate the experience.
Exactly. Your Monday morning story should be the verbal equivalent of a great Instagram post. It should be short, catchy, and capture a specific vibe. Our source gave some fantastic examples of this modern, punchy phrasing.
Give me an example. How do you summarize a trip using this style?
Instead of a long explanation like, I went away to a cabin to get away from my stressful job. You could just say, I spent the weekend escaping reality for 48 hours.
Escaping reality for 48 hours. That is brilliant. It implies so much without needing a long story. It sets a mood.
Or instead of saying, I stayed home and read a magazine and drank tea, you can use the phrase Sunday mood board. It turns a lazy day into an aesthetic choice. It is short, energetic, and gives the listener a clear picture.
That's a very modern way to handle the Monday morning question. It's highly effective. So we've covered the grammar mechanics, we explored the vocabulary of different weekends, we analyzed the social etiquette, and we broke down the neuroscience of storytelling.
We have given our listeners a massive toolkit, but, we really have to address the elephant in the room. There is a hard truth we must face.
What is the hard truth?
All the vocabulary and storytelling tricks in the world will not help you if you are fundamentally miserable. To have a good story to tell on Monday morning, you need to actually enjoy your days off. You need to return to work feeling refreshed.
This is a profound point. Language reflects reality. If your weekend was filled with stress, your Monday morning conversation will feel forced and exhausting.
And unfortunately, millions of people suffer from a psychological phenomenon that completely ruins their weekends. It is called the Sunday Scaries.
The Sunday Scaries. It sounds like a children's cartoon, but it's actually a very severe form of clinical anxiety. The Sunday Scaries refer to the feeling of dread, panic, and sadness that hits people on Sunday afternoon or early evening.
The source we reviewed from Talk describes this as anticipatory anxiety. Let's break down what that means from an evolutionary standpoint, because it explains why our bodies react so violently to a simple calendar day.
From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain's primary job is to keep you alive. A million years ago, if your brain anticipated danger, it was because there was a literal tiger hiding in the bushes.
Right.
Your brain would flood your body with adrenaline and cortisol stress hormones. These hormones make your heart beat faster, make your stomach tight, and keep you wide awake so you can run away.
But on Sunday evening at 6:00 p.m., I am safe in my living room. There is no tiger.
There is no physical tiger, but your brain cannot tell the difference between physical danger and social danger. Your brain starts thinking about your strict boss, the hundreds of unread emails, and the big presentation on Monday morning. Your brain anticipates this future threat, and it reacts exactly as if a tiger has entered your living room.
That explains so much. It explains why people get stomach aches on Sunday night, why they can't fall asleep. Their body is preparing for an attack that isn't happening yet.
Exactly. Completely ruins the final hours of the weekend. So how do we hack the brain? How do we turn off this evolutionary alarm bell so we can actually enjoy our Sunday?
The sources provide some highly effective, scientifically backed techniques. The first technique is to create a deliberate Sunday evening ritual.
A ritual is very different from a routine. A routine is just a sequence of actions, like brushing your teeth. A ritual is an action infused with meaning and intention.
Why does the brain respond to rituals?
Because rituals provide predictability. Anxiety is the fear of the unknown. When you perform a calming ritual at the exact same time every Sunday, you send a biological signal to your nervous system that says, we are safe. Everything is under control.
So a ritual could be making a cup of chamomile tea, turning off the bright overhead lights, and reading a physical book for 30 minutes. It transitions the body from the weekend energy to sleep energy.
Another critical technique to fight the Sunday scaries is setting strict digital boundaries. The source is very clear about this. You must disconnect from the office.
This is so hard for modern workers. We have our work emails on our phones. It is so tempting to just take a quick look on Sunday afternoon to see what is waiting for us.
But the moment you look at that inbox, you invite the tiger into the living room. You trigger the anticipatory anxiety. You must create a hard rule. No checking work platforms after 5 p.m. on Friday. The emails will still be there on Monday. Guard your weekend peace fiercely.
I love that. Guard your peace fiercely. But let's look even broader. Let's look at the entire weekend. We have a source that delves into the actual science of weekend planning. It turns out watching TV for 48 hours is not actually the best way to rest.
This is a major misconception. People think rest means the absence of movement, but what the brain actually requires is cognitive rest.
Cognitive means relating to conscious mental activities, thinking, problem solving, making decisions.
Yes. During the work week, you suffer from decision fatigue. You have to make hundreds of small decisions every day. If you spend your weekend scrolling endlessly through a streaming service trying to decide what movie to watch, you are still making decisions. You are not getting cognitive rest.
So what does scientifically effective rest look like? The source from Conquer All Things identifies 4 specific ingredients that make up the perfect restorative weekend.
The first ingredient is physical activity. Our bodies were not designed to sit in office chairs for 40 hours a week. Movement flushes out stress hormones.
The source mentions the term weekend warrior. This means someone who might be totally sedentary during the week, but exercises intensely on the weekend. The science says even this concentrated burst of exercise has massive cardiovascular and psychological benefits.
The second ingredient is time in nature. This isn't just poetry, it's biology. Studies show that walking in a green space, hearing birds, or being near water physically lowers your blood pressure and reduces the cortisol in your bloodstream.
Ingredient number 3 is social connection. As we discussed earlier with small talk, humans are tribal animals. We need to feel connected to a group. Isolation breeds depression.
Having a coffee with a friend or having family over for dinner builds emotional resilience. It reminds you that your identity is not just an employee. You are a friend, a parent, a sibling.
And the final ingredient, which might be the most important, is restorative sleep. Not just passing out from exhaustion, but getting high-quality, deep sleep to repair your brain cells.
Physical activity, nature, social connection, and sleep. If you ensure your weekend contains these 4 elements, your brain will physically repair itself. You will wake up on Monday with a full battery.
Well, let me push back on this. Let me play devil's advocate. If I sit down on Friday night with a pen and paper, and I plan out every hour exercise at 9 a.m., nature walk at 11 a.m., social lunch at 1 p.m., doesn't that just recreate the stress of my work calendar? Doesn't the weekend become another project to manage?
That is a very valid concern. Overscheduling your weekend is a recipe for disaster. The science does not recommend a strict schedule. It recommends a loose framework.
Explain the difference between a schedule and a loose framework.
A schedule is tied to the clock. I must be at the park at exactly 10:00 a.m. If you are late, you feel anxious. A loose framework is tied to intention. You simply decide, sometime on Saturday morning, I will go for a walk outside.
So why is the loose framework better than having no plan at all?
Because having no plan at all brings back decision fatigue. If you wake up on Saturday with a completely blank slate, you will waste 3 hours on the couch trying to decide what you want to do. You will feel paralyzed by choice. And by Sunday night, you will feel guilty that you wasted the weekend.
So a loose framework eliminates the decision fatigue but maintains your freedom. You already know the what, you just get to choose the when.
Exactly. To help you build this loose framework, our Rise and Shine source provided some incredible mindful journal prompts. These are questions you ask yourself on Friday evening to guide your intentions.
One of the prompts is, how can I make space for rest this weekend?
Notice the phrasing, make space. It implies that rest does not happen by accident. In our busy modern world, if you don't aggressively carve out space for rest, chores and obligations will fill the time.
Another prompt is, what is one thing I am deeply grateful for today?
Gratitude is a powerful psychological tool. It forces your brain to stop scanning for threats, the tiger we talked about, and forces it to acknowledge safety and abundance. Taking 5 minutes to feel grateful can shift your entire nervous system out of fight or flight mode.
Let's pull all of these threads together. We have discussed grammar, vocabulary, etiquette, storytelling, and the psychology of rest. Let's give the listener a vision of what a perfectly executed weekend looks like, from Friday night to Monday morning.
I love this. On Friday night, you close your laptop and turn off your work email notifications. You establish that boundary. On Saturday, you use a loose framework. You sleep in. You get some physical activity by taking a long hike in a local park that covers nature and movement.
In the evening, you meet up with some friends to catch up with them. You are getting your social connection. You laugh, releasing oxytocin.
On Sunday, you tidy up the house to restore order. And as the evening approaches, you don't panic. You start your calming Sunday ritual. You read a book, you wind down, and you get a full 8 hours of restorative sleep.
And then, the ultimate test. It is Monday morning. You walk into the office. Your coworker looks at you and asks the dreaded question, how was your weekend?
But this time, you do not freeze. You have perfect grammar. You understand the social ritual of small talk. You know how to edit your truth for the office.
You smile. You use a short, punchy sensory detail. You say, it was wonderfully restorative. I took a long hike in the woods and caught up with some old friends. How was yours?
You have navigated the interaction flawlessly. You sound fluent, natural, and confident.
And that is the ultimate goal. This has been such a comprehensive deep dive. Thank you for joining us today on English Refines. We know that speaking a new language is incredibly challenging, especially in fast-paced social situations. But remember, the Monday morning question is not a trap. It is an opportunity.
It is an opportunity to connect with another human being. And please, be kind to yourself as you practice. You will make mistakes. You will forget the helper verb did. You might accidentally tell your boss that you are boring. It happens to everyone.
When you make a mistake, just laugh it off and try again. The more you practice these frameworks, the more your brain will internalize the patterns. Soon, you won't even have to think about the grammar. It will just flow.
Keep practicing your daily life speaking. Use these phrases in your head even when you are alone. Narrate your own weekend to yourself in English.
Before we say goodbye, we always like to leave our listeners with a provocative thought, something to chew on during the week that goes beyond just the mechanics of the language.
We have spent an hour talking about how to report your activities,
Right.
what you did, the places you went.
But our society is overly obsessed with productivity and action. We measure the value of a weekend by how many things we crossed off a list. But what if we changed the metric of a good weekend?
How so?
What if instead of asking people what they did, we started asking people what they learned?
Oh, that completely shifts the dynamic of the conversation.
Imagine going to the office on Monday, and instead of the standard, "How was your weekend?" you look at your coworker and ask, "What was the most surprising thing you learned this weekend?"
That immediately bypasses the superficial small talk. It invites a much deeper, more authentic connection.
Exactly. Maybe they read a fascinating article. Maybe they learned a new recipe. Maybe they learned something profound about themselves while taking a quiet walk. Asking what someone learned validates their inner life, not just their physical actions.
It is a beautiful question. It turns an ordinary social ritual into an opportunity for real discovery.
So, we challenge you to try it. Sometime next week, when you are catching up with a friend in English, test out this new question. See how it changes the energy of the conversation.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep practicing, keep making mistakes, and keep learning. Have a wonderful week and, of course, a fantastic weekend.
Thank you for being part of English Refined. Take care, and we will talk to you next time. Goodbye.